Now from there and that type of thing, now you go to real quick here in that type of thing, your fighter type thing in that type of sense, which is amazing. And in that, which I don't think I have enough time to do type thing, here, and there's your base attack bonus of 1 type thing in that type of sense. And weapon focus is going to add 1 type thing. That's your base attack bonus type thing in that type of sense. There she is right there. There's +1 type thing at first level and your first level character. And then you turn to the almighty page 135 type thing in that type of sense. And from that, that's combat basics type thing. And that's here type thing in that type of sense. Underneath this and that type of thing. And that's first and second type thing. That's combat basics. And that's the first, that's the second column. And that's the first column type thing in that type of sense. And from that you go down the first column type thing in that type of sense. And your initiative, actions, attacks, attack roll type thing in that type of sense. Melee attack roll, D20 type thing in that type of sense. Plus your base attack bonus type thing. So we need a D20 type thing in that type of thing here. In that type thing. And that's a D20 in that type of thing. Plus your base attack bonus type thing, which is 1. Plus your weapon focus type thing in that type of sense. And so now, at first level type thing, you have a D20 plus 2 attack type thing in that type of sense. And in that type of thing, you have a D, that's a D 18 hit points as well. Now in that type of thing here, now you have to do, that's your attack type thing in that type of sense, to score a hit that deals damage on your attack roll. And from there, you go back and you're like, I'm using a longsword, or since I'm a dwarf taking in that type of sense, I'll look that up taking in that type of thing. And boom, you go to 119, that's some of the weapons taking in that type of sense. And from that type thing in that type of sense, that's now that's on this, the first page and the second type thing in that type of sense. That's let's see here, simple weapons. That's the first column type thing. That's weapons names. That's the cost type thing in that type of sense. 75 gold pieces. That's the second column type thing in that type of sense. Damage small type thing in that type of sense. That's the third column type thing. And damage medium. That's that column type thing in that type of sense. And that's right. Now from there in that type of thing, that's damage 4. That's the 4 type thing in that type of sense. You have to go all the way back to page 14 type thing in that type of sense, because of the word type thing in that type of sense. And in that type of thing, that's 14 type thing, dwarf racial traits, +2 constitution, and then the next bullet down, medium size type thing in that type of sense. So medium column damage type thing in that type of sense. Very complicated. And in that type of sense, that's medium, that's exotic, that's two-handed weapons type thing in that type of sense. So now we've got here type thing, that's exotic, and then that's from the exotic on the page on 117, that's exotic, light, comma, nunchuck, size, hams, one-hand melee weapons, one-handed weapons type thing in that type of sense. So we write that down in that type of sense. Now from here type thing, it's a one-handed weapon type thing, that's first level type thing in that type of sense. And in that type of thing, I'm going to go ahead and put that here in gray type thing. That's not a two-handed weapon, it's a one-handed weapon, one-handed melees. And in that type of sense, that's one-handed melee, bastard sword, dwarven war axe type thing in that type of sense, 30 gold piece. In that type of sense, that's a D8 type thing in that type of sense. And for medium type thing in that type of sense, that's a D10 weapon, that's ×3 type thing in that type of sense. Now from there, the great axe up here type thing in that type of sense is also a medium weapon, that's D10, and then D12 times 3 type thing in that type of sense. But that's a two-handed weapon type thing, and that's a two-handed weapon. And that's a two-handed weapon, and this is one type thing, which means you can take one and a heavier, wider shield in that type of sense. That's not a buckler type thing in that type of thing. And that's right. From that type of thing, that's Dwarven War Axe, that's a D10 times 3, so if you hit a critical, that's 3D10 type thing in that type of sense. And your level type thing in that type of sense is still first level type thing in that type of sense. Now that's a D10, D10, D10 type thing in that type of sense, and a D10. Now from that type of thing, that's your D10 type thing, and didn't have any strength bonus type thing in that type of sense, in that type of thing in that type of sense, so it's just a straight up D10 type thing in that type of sense. Actually, I guess I can make a little bit of strength type thing and go with 12 strength, and in your strength type thing, you have to go back to that type thing in that type of sense, and from there, in that type of sense, you apply your character strength modifier to melee attack rolls type thing, and in that type of thing, that's damage rolls, melee attack rolls type thing in that type of sense. Melee attack rolls is what your thing in the D20 type thing in that type of sense, which it isn't type thing in that type of sense. So it's page 135, it said melee type thing in that type of sense, which is right. Now that's melee type thing, that's attack roll, then melee attack roll type thing in that type of sense. That's page 135. And then from there type thing, the second bullet down type thing, that type of sense, damage rolls type thing, that type of thing. So now that's D10 type thing. Now I gotta go back type thing, that type of sense, to strength modifier. I had 3 points remaining type thing from earlier type thing in that type of sense, which I've since moved in that type of thing. Let's go here and it's here type thing in that type of sense. 3 points remaining type thing to spin. Now I've got 3 points remaining. You can go to the 3 type thing. That's a 13, and that is for 3 points type thing in that type of sense. And that doesn't look that legible there type thing in that type. There we go. And that's a 13. That's for 3 points type thing in that type of sense. And so you can have a 13 strength type thing, 13 strength type thing with your con. That's 12 to 13. That's a +1 modifier type thing in that type of sense. So now you do a D10 +1 damage type thing right there in that type of sense on your damage roll type thing every time you swing. Now from there, we have to go to a shield type thing in that type of sense, which is right. In that type of thing, from that type of thing, which is very difficult type thing in that type of sense, in that setup type thing, it's not that bad of a fighter, which it is. Now from there type thing in that type of sense, from that, which it isn't, and in that type of thing, you go here to page like 125 or something like that. That's page 125, in that type of thing. That's a buckler type thing in that type of sense. This small metal shield is one strapped to your forearm. You can use the bow crossbow without penalty while carrying it. You can also use your shield arm to wield a weapon, whether you're using offhand weapon or using your offhand to help wield a two-handed weapon, but you take a -1 penalty on attack rolls while doing so because of the extra weight on your arm, which isn't bad type thing, but it would already knock out some bonuses type thing in that type of sense for your character type thing in that type of thing. So in that type of thing, now that's your fighter type thing. Now you get another box type thing in that type of sense. And from there type thing, you go here, and in that type of thing, and from that, you turn back to fighter and Tordic type thing in that type of sense, and you write down your intelligence type thing, which is 10, and from that type of thing, from there, that's 2, and that type of thing, that's 2 type thing in that type of sense, so that's 2 plus intelligence modifier of 0 type thing, and then there's an x4 there in that type of sense. x4, that's 2 in parentheses times 4, that equals 8 type thing in that type of sense, and from there type thing in that type of sense, you're like, well, I'm not really on horseback, I'm not swimming type thing, that's like -2, negative penalty type thing in that type of sense for the armor check penalty that you have. So if you had an armor check penalty of -5, then times 2 type thing is -10 armor check penalty on your skill check. So in that type of thing, that's ride, that's jump type thing until different material type thing in that type of sense. Intimidate, handle animal type thing, that's interesting type thing in that type of sense. I guess for the ride and the ride beast type thing, like stormtroopers type thing, getting on beast type thing, that type of sense, and calming the animal. Not as many benefits on it type thing, but enough to use it to do a caravan with in that type of sense. So in that type of thing, that's craft type thing, and climb. This is really awkward. So in that type of thing, in that type of sense, I'm going to go ahead and say ride type thing in that type of sense for Warcraft people type thing on Griffins. And in that type of thing, I'm going to put 4 ranks of that in ride type thing also, but no heal check in there. And in that type of thing, and from that, I guess I could start swim type thing. I'm going to do ride and handle animal, just in case I become a knight later type thing in that type of sense. So now that's 4 ranks and 4 ranks type thing, and that's a total of 8 ranks type thing. Then you turn to page 61 type thing in that type of sense, and from that type thing, boom, 61, and in that type of thing, that says a D20 type thing in that type of sense, plus your skill modifier. So that's ranks type thing in that type of sense, that's 4, and it's 4. And that's a D20 here type thing. Now I gotta find another D20 and another D20 type thing in that type of sense. And in that type of thing, that's D20 type thing and a D20 here type thing. Kind of buried that up. And in that type of thing, that's a D20 plus 4 and a D20 plus 4 potentially, without rolling a 1 or something like that in that type of sense. And from that, you handle animal at D20 plus 4 and that type of thing. And in that type of thing, there you do a ride at plus 4. Now in that type of sense, let's turn the page back type thing in that type of sense. That's Ragdar type thing there. On there, there's Ragdar type thing in that type of sense. That's page 38. That's the fighter type thing. I'm going to go from the fighter to game role information type thing, the class skills type thing in that type of sense. Class skills type thing in that type of thing. That's fighter class skills, and the key ability for each skill are climb, strength, craft, intelligence, handle animal, charisma, intimidate, charisma, jump, strength, ride, dexterity, and swim. And see chapter 4 skills for skill description. Skill points at first level 2 plus intelligence modifier times 4. So in there type thing, that's handle animal type thing in that type of sense. And that is ride right there in that type of thing. And that's Ragdar. So from there type thing in that type of sense, let's get a bird's eye view before we go back type thing in that type of sense. I've got like a whole new video in this, and I want to like cut it up type thing in that type of sense. That's perfect. I apologize for the abruptness of the cut beforehand type thing in that type of sense, because that deserved to happen. And in that type of thing, from that type of thing in that type of sense, you spent the remaining of your points type thing in that type of sense. You get a 13 stat type thing. Put that down in that type of sense. That's cool. That's there type thing in that type of sense. That's 13 strength type thing in that type of sense. Boom. Now you got 13 strength type thing with 20 constitution type thing in that type of sense. All the rest of them are at 0 ability that you spin into it in that type of sense, which make 10 in that type of sense, which they don't. And now in that type of thing, that's 10 type thing for 0 type thing in that type of sense. And so all the rest of them are at 10. You have a 13 strength type thing and a 20 con type thing in that type of sense. From there, we went on to do in that type of sense. That might be too many dice type thing. We've got an ability score that was an 18 with +2 type thing from Dwarven Race on page 14 to make that a 20 con. And then each roll of the hit dice type thing gets a D10 type thing in that type of sense. So in that we had a D10 type thing from our fighter class type thing. Also, the D10 is here, right there type thing in that type of sense. That's a D10. And so we had a D10 and it said rather than rolling with next to the backpack type thing in that type of sense. And that's boom. And that's boom. That's a backpack type thing on page 23. That's a backpack right next to the backpack. There's your bars type thing in that type of sense. From there in that type of sense, it also says D10 type thing for fighter, paladin. And from that type of thing in that type of sense, with the different ability, you got 2 feats with the type thing, class feat, and also a character feat type thing in that type of sense, the claw and the cha. And in that type of sense, that's too close type thing, character and class. So that's the tur and the sis. And so in that type of thing, those are both the same feats, and they are. So that's page 22 type thing plus page 39 type thing in that type of sense. And these feats are in addition type thing in that type. So you add them together, but get off the subject type thing. That's 10 hit points type thing rather than rolling in that type of sense and finding an 8 and 4 type thing. You made 10 plus your constitution 5 plus 3, that's 18 type thing. And that's still it. We're still a first level character type thing. And at first type thing in that type of sense, you had 2 feats, weapon focus, and toughness type thing in that type of sense. From there, you had a 20 attack type thing with +1 and +1 type thing in that type of sense. From that type thing, and I didn't put ones down with it. I wrote it on the paper type thing in that type of sense. So that's 1 type thing in that type of sense. We're up to 22 at first level type thing in that type of sense. And in that type of thing, here type thing in that type of sense, that's first, that's your to attack. And then you go to your damage type thing in that type of sense. And from that, on that damage type thing, you do a D10 one-handed type thing with the one hand and add 1 string type thing to it type thing in that type of sense, and can still carry a shield that doesn't add -1 penalty to you, and it doesn't have a +1 bonus to that in that type of sense, which is right.